give up the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you do talk to us, you can stop at any time. Do you understand those rights, Fred? I don't want you in your own words at this time to tell me as clearly and as best you can what occurred there. Yeah, and things just got hectic after that. What did she say to you when she saw you, Fred? She didn't say anything. She was just like trying to, like, as soon as she seen me, like run the other way, break the other way. And I grabbed her. What happened then? So I was just like trying to kill her. And then I was like, oh, I ran to like the kitchen. On top of the refrigerator was a knife. And I just killed her.
Do you remember one of the girls trying to get to the phone?
I don't know. She said, "Get to the phone, get to the phone." She was just saying that, "Get to the phone." She didn't say the name, but she said.
Did you remember one of the girls trying to get to the phone?
No, she just standing at the side of the wall, and I was running back to the window, back and forth to see if the police were coming or something like that. If you can remember, how many knives did you use? About 6, I think. Maybe. Covered the mother. Do you remember what you covered the other children with? The rug. The rug. Okay. All right.
Why did you call him?
All right. Because I don't want to look at that. What did you do? Grabbed all the knives and anything that I could see, and then put them in a towel, then in the bag. Did you get the towel in the bag from inside the house? Yeah, in the bathroom. Okay. And then I just put everything in the bag. I even got the garbage bag out of the bathroom. Have you found that bag? Did you find all Dixie cups and everything in it? I think they did. Yeah, that was from their house. You put the clothes in the attic, you put the knives in the shed. What else do you do? Live with guilt till I get caught. Okay. This interview's ended. September 17th, 12:40.
Hi friends, thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little with me. I appreciate you. This week I'm covering another viewer suggestion. This one comes from YouTube user Paula09967. Thank you in advance. Our case this week is about Craig Price from Rhode Island, who is considered one of the youngest serial killers in the United States. So as always, I ask you to join me as we remember Rebecca Spencer, Joan Heaton, Jennifer Heaton, and Melissa Heaton. During the summer of 1987, Rebecca Spencer, her 2 children, and her brother were residents of the Buttonwood neighborhood located in Warwick, Rhode Island. Warwick itself is the 3rd largest city of the state, but Buttonwood was a quaint working-class neighborhood. Although she only lived in the area for a short while, Rebecca decided it was time for her family to move on. The freshly divorced 27-year-old earned her high school equivalency diploma and planned to attend college at night. She was currently employed at a jewelry company, but she felt she could do better for herself. In fact, she wanted to do better. On July 27, 1987, Rebecca's children were with their father, while she spent the day packing up her home alongside friends. With the clock nearing midnight, she decided to call it a night, sending her friends home and retiring for the evening. Since the home was essentially packed up, Rebecca curled up on the living room floor and passed out in front of the TV. But little did she know, someone was watching in. Through all of the chaos, Rebecca left the back door slightly ajar, and an unknown assailant crept in. Rebecca's body was discovered the following day. She suffered 58 stab wounds. No additional evidence was discovered. It appeared the murderer came and went without notice, and this terrified the residents of Buttonwood. Her case would turn cold and sit for 2 more years. With the horrific murder in the past, things started to feel normal, but then tragedy struck again. Just houses from the Spencer murder lived the Heaton family. Joan, 39 years old, Jennifer, 10 years old, and Melissa, 8 years old. The Heatons, according to neighbors, were very friendly and active in their church. Joan sponsored those taking confirmation classes, and her daughters never missed Sunday school. Joan was pleasant and down to earth, while her girls were very respectful and kind. On September 4th, 1989, Marie Bouchard, Joan's mother, decided to stop by their home on Metropolitan Drive. Marie was concerned since she had not heard from her daughter during the long holiday weekend. No one was answering the phone despite her numerous calls, so she asked her other daughter, Mary Lou, to accompany her. Upon arrival, she noted that Joan's car was parked in the driveway, so she tried knocking on the door. But after several attempts, no one answered, so they decided to enter. The putrid smell in the air hit them first, and was followed up by blood spatters throughout the interior. A few steps further, they found the bodies of their loved ones. Joan was lying beneath a blood-soaked sheet in the hallway. Jennifer, the eldest daughter, was near her mother, while Melissa was on the kitchen floor. Police were called soon after the discovery, and the investigation was underway. The savagery shocked even the most seasoned detectives. All victims were stabbed multiple times. Melissa specifically was stabbed so hard that one of the blades broke off in her neck. It was also discovered her skull was bashed in by a bar stool found nearby. In total, Joan suffered 57 stab wounds and was strangled. Jennifer, 62 stab wounds, and Melissa, 30 stab wounds. It was believed the Heatons were murdered 3 days prior on September 1st, 1989. Much like the Spencer murder 2 years prior, the Heatons' deaths sent the neighborhood into a panic. Police presence was heavy. Neighbors bought extra locks for their doors, and windows were checked often. No one could afford to overlook one measure of safety, since a monster was in their midst. The best of the best were assigned to the case, where every bit of evidence was reviewed, including interviewing neighbors. They didn't have much to go off, but couldn't help notice the similarities between the Heaton murders and the unsolved Spencer murder. To help narrow the search, detectives enlisted the help of FBI profiler Greg McCrary. During his review of the known information, Greg stated he believed the perpetrator was someone from the neighborhood, and probably connected to the other unsolved crime from the area. The two cases shared many similarities. In both instances, it appeared the killer used weapons already present in the home, such as kitchen knives. He also felt the motive was not murder, but possibly burglary, since it seemed like crimes of opportunity rather than a planned-out assault. In both instances, it felt like the perpetrator was eliminating witnesses, but the display of overkill suggested they were familiar with their victims. Plus, the close proximity of the two houses from each other, approximately 5 houses apart, just solidified the assailant was from the area. During the examination of the evidence, it was discovered a blood type not matching the known samples was found in the home. They also noticed a blood sock imprint in the hallway belonging to a size 13 shoe. Greg felt that due to the nature of the stabbings, the killer probably injured themselves, likely on their hand. He told police to keep a watchful eye on neighbors with fresh visible wounds. Surprisingly, this advice checked out. Just days after the discovery of the Heaton family, detectives Pendergrast and Brandreth were patrolling a park near the neighborhood when Pendergrast spotted a familiar face. Pendergrast first met 15-year-old Craig Price when he coached the local basketball team. A known resident in the neighborhood, Craig Chandler Price was the third child of John and Shirley Price. He was born on October 11, 1973 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Growing up, Craig was raised by devout Baptist. His parents met in the church and always reminded Craig and his siblings that they were children of God. The Price family moved to Buttonwood in 1978. Even from a young age, Craig had a talent for storytelling and making others laugh. He loved to play sports, specifically football, and he played the guitar. He always found himself surrounded by friends and was said to be respectful to adults. By the time he reached 13, Craig attended Warwick Veterans Memorial High School, where he was described as a bright student who always scored high on his test. It was around this time period when he started skipping class and dabbling in teenage experimenting. He was partying, trying drugs, and committing petty theft jobs, such as car smash and grabs. By his 15th birthday, he had a history of charges ranging from peeping Tom to breaking and entering. His behavior caused problems at home, which resulted in more heated arguments with his parents. Craig grew a reputation for having a violent temper, and on multiple occasions, police were at the Price home to settle these disputes. Because of his history, Pendergrast decided to call him over and ask if he'd heard about the murders. Craig seemed to show concern. He wasn't aware what happened, but did claim to see the bodies being removed since he lived just a few doors down. During this little exchange, the detectives looked down and noticed his hand was bandaged up. When asked about the injury, Craig claimed he was drunk nights earlier and punched his hand through a car window. Detectives questioned this narrative since Craig was willingly confessing to a crime. They didn't have evidence to prove any of this, and no one reported a car break-in, so they could only take a report and let Craig go. But Pendergrast and Brandreth felt there was more to Craig's story. They drove to the street he claimed to commit the crime, but there was nothing, no evidence of a window being shattered, and no witnesses. Craig Price became a viable suspect in the Heaton murders. Craig was questioned more thoroughly at a later date with his parents present. During the interview, they asked detailed questions about the cut on his hand, and Craig maintained his story. Because he wouldn't budge, they asked him to take a lie detector test, which he agreed. During the test, he was again asked about his injury, and he stuck to his story. But this time, the test showed deception. Since lie detectors are not admissible in court, investigators needed solid evidence in order to charge Craig. Craig's friends and acquaintances were interviewed. They claimed he ran with a gang of juvenile delinquents who were known to break into houses. It was amongst this group that Craig allegedly boasted about killing Rebecca Spencer. With this new revelation, a search warrant was quickly obtained. During the early morning hours of September 17, 1989, a team of officers arrived at the Price house, warrant in hand. The Price family was woken up and asked to sit in the living room and wait. All appeared to be visibly distressed except for Craig, who fell asleep on the couch. During the search, a shed behind the backyard was investigated, where a trash bag was removed. Inside of this trash bag were several blood-stained knives, bloodied clothing, and a set of gloves. Police returned to the living room, where they arrested Craig Price on 3 counts of murder. He was transported back to the police station, where he was interrogated about the evidence discovered, and surprisingly, Craig did not hold back. Very nonchalantly, he described in detail what happened that night. Craig claimed to be high at the time, but expressed his only intention was to rob the house. He discovered an open window in the bathroom and crawled in. He made a lot of noise during this process. He walked through the home looking for items to take, not realizing the noise he made woke up Joan, who walked into the kitchen behind him. Joan panicked, but Craig was quicker. He grabbed Joan and started strangling her. Her screams startled the children, who came down to investigate. Melissa ran to the phone to call the police, but Craig overpowered her too. He explained how he tackled the girls to the floor, then retrieved a kitchen knife and just started stabbing. During the attack, one of the victims bit him in the hand, and he responded by biting her in the face. He admitted to hitting the youngest daughter over the head when she continued to struggle. Craig stated he didn't expect a fight, but they all fought until they succumbed to their injuries. He confirmed during the murders he did stab his hand and chose to tend to the wounds in the bathroom, where he left behind the sock print and blood evidence. The unknown samples were matched to Craig, as well as his shoe size compared to the print. Prior to leaving the house, he covered the bodies with blankets and attempted to clean the scene with towels. Out of fear of being caught, he didn't stay long. He gathered the weapons and towels before returning home, where he hid the items in the shed. But Craig wasn't finished. After his initial statement, he admitted he was responsible for the unsolved Rebecca Spencer murder. He had no problem providing the details to investigators and showing little remorse for his actions. The rarity of solving 4 murders in a matter of hours was uncommon, but the big issue at hand was Craig's punishment. All of those involved were rooting for a long prison sentence, but Craig had the law on his side. Even though his crimes were horrific, he wouldn't face a trial or even be given a prison sentence. When Craig committed these crimes, he was a minor. He confessed to them just 6 weeks before his 16th birthday. At the time, the court could only order that Craig be enrolled in a training school until his 21st birthday. So the reality for those in Rhode Island was that in just 5 years, not only would Craig Price be free, but his record would be sealed. Even though he was not sent to trial, Craig still had to appear in court prior to being placed in the training school. His court hearing took place on September 21, 1989, where he was presented with his charges of murder and burglary, where he pled guilty. The judge ordered him to serve 5 years at the Rhode Island Training School Youth Correctional Center. As part of this judgment, Craig was ordered to undergo psychological examinations and therapy, but on the advice of his lawyer, Craig refused. Court documents claim the reason behind this decision was based in fear that the psychological exam would result in Craig being moved to a psychiatric facility beyond his 21st birthday. Craig started his sentence by integrating into the training school's day-to-day activities. He completed his high school equivalency exam and started taking college courses that he felt he would need to improve himself for life on the outside. By 1993, he served half of his sentence and became known for his good behavior. Because of this, he was given privileges which included counseling other youths and participating in light security duties. Rhode Island citizens and families of the victims were enraged. They felt Craig was being provided special treatment for his crimes. The protesting put a stop to it, but it didn't stop the bigger issue at hand, his upcoming release date. At the time of Craig's crimes, there were no laws in place for violent teen offenders. So in an attempt to halt his release, Marie Heaton, Mary Lou Heaton, Captain Kevin Collins, and Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Price lobbied to have Rhode Island legislature institute a new bill to prevent Craig and others like him from being released based on their age. Through the work done by Price and Collins, the bill was passed which toughened sentences for teen murders. However, it was not retroactively applied to Craig, whose release date was creeping closer and closer. Pine stayed invested in ensuring Craig stayed locked up. In addition to the O'Neill bill, he was able to get the Craig Price bill passed, which forced inmates to psychological testing and treatment if they posed a danger to society. In October of 1993, Collins organized the group Citizens Opposed to the Release of Price, or CORP, a nonprofit organization. CORP concentrated on raising funds which were used to increase public awareness about his crimes and assist in the lobbying efforts in regards to bills that would prevent him from being released. The group went out of their way to inform not only Rhode Island, but the country of Craig's crimes and his upcoming release. They held rallies, got petitions signed, and even hired planes with banners to fly over areas they thought Craig might move to, while Craig was preparing for his life beyond the institution. But then on June 8, 1994, Craig was indicted on one count of simple assault and extortion after threatening to injure an officer at the training school. Rhode Island residents rejoiced. 1 week later, Craig was arraigned and bail was set at $500,000. The trial was scheduled for later that fall. That same month, while awaiting trial, Craig still refused to undergo the psychological examination, and after 6 attempts, he continued to push back. On October 3, 1994, Craig's trial for the assault and extortion began at the Superior Courthouse in Providence. The courtroom was packed while everyone awaited the outcome. The state presented their opening statement in which they claimed Craig verbally assaulted an officer after being given a disciplinary report to sign for possession of contraband. Craig threatened the officer that if he continued his job at the facility, he would snuff him out. Prosecution introduced several witnesses, including staff and other officers who provided an in-depth account of the situation. Several officers witnessed the incident and indicated the officer involved was only trying to de-escalate the volatile situation. After several witnesses providing a similar story to the officer, the prosecution rested their case. The following day, the defense team introduced a witness who was employed at the training school, who claimed he didn't feel the dispute was threatening in any manner. However, during cross-examination, this witness contradicted their previous statements, claiming the actions presented by Craig were threatening. The second witness claimed Craig threatened the officer, and the defense's case essentially fell apart. The third day of trial, Craig testified in his own defense. He explained when the contraband was found, the officer gave the impression that the incident would not be reported. So when he was given a report, he became angry. He admitted to shouting profanities, but claimed he did not threaten his life. Craig went from testifying to an outburst, where he started shouting the situation was part of a conspiracy to keep him incarcerated. This marked the end of the trial. On October 6, 1984, the jury retired to deliberate. It took just one day. The following afternoon, a verdict was returned where Craig was found guilty on both counts. In December the same year, he was sentenced to 15 years, 8 of which were suspended. His sentence was to be served at the Adult Correctional Institution in Cranston, Rhode Island. After his sentencing, Craig continued to find trouble. In 1996, Craig was involved in a brawl. Craig injured a correctional officer who was trying to end the fight, which resulted in another assault charge. Prosecutors took an uncommon approach of charging him with probation violation, even though he was still imprisoned at the time. He pled guilty and was sentenced to an additional year. In 1997, Craig was placed on trial again, but this time for contempt, due to his failure to comply with the psychiatric evaluation. Craig initially agreed to comply, but due to lying about the events surrounding the murders, his test was voided. During the trial, Craig admitted to lying and was eventually found guilty. He received another year in prison. Between 1998 to 2009, Craig received a number of charges and extra years for assault and verbal assault on correctional officers. In 2004, he was transferred to a prison in Florida due to his violent tendencies. He came up for parole in March of 2009 but was denied. On April 4, 2017, Craig was accused of stabbing another inmate at the Suwannee Correctional Institution in Live Oak, Florida. On January 18, 2019, Craig Price was found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to 25 years. In total, Craig Price, who was given the moniker the Warwick Slasher, was sentenced to a total of 55 years in prison. He is currently serving his sentence at the Union Correctional Institution in Ryford, Florida. His projected release date is January 7th of 2044. Hi friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, so leave them below and we can chat about this case. If you found this to be informative, please consider giving the video a thumbs up to let YouTube know you want more from me. And if you're not subscribed yet, you should, because we would love to have you under the ash tree. Sorry about the delay on this one. I took a few days off around the holiday, then I got really sick right after, but all is better now. So thank you so much for all of your love and kindness. You're all the best, and I hope you have a great week ahead of you. But for now, we have to part ways. So stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.